20 circus performers who genuinely existed and whose stories are far more compelling than any fiction. From a man who slid swords through his body without flinching to a woman with 4 legs who became a beloved public figure, these individuals turned extraordinary physical circumstances into celebrated careers. Their lives speak to resilience, talent, and something deeply stubborn in the human spirit. Number 1. Mirren de Joe, the invulnerable man. Mirren de Joe was born in the Netherlands in 1912, and from the beginning, it was clear he was unlike anyone else. He could push swords and massive needles straight through his body. No blood, no apparent pain, no lasting injury. Physicians were so baffled, they subjected him to X-rays and rigorous medical examinations, yet nothing explained what they were seeing. There were no tricks, no illusions, just a man whose body seemed to operate by different rules entirely.
By the 1940s, his reputation had spread across continents, and audiences simply could not get enough of him. Even now, decades later, no one has offered a fully satisfying explanation. He remains one of the great unsolved curiosities of medical history, a man who forced the world to question what it thought it understood about human anatomy. Number 2. Johnny Eck, the Half-Man. Johnny Eck was born in 1911 in Baltimore, and he came into the world without the lower half of his torso. What he lacked in body, he more than made up for in drive. He became an actor, a horror illustrator, a painter, a musician, a filmmaker, and an acrobat. His breakthrough came in 1932 when he appeared in the film Freaks, a role that showed the world his charisma ran deeper than his physical distinctiveness. Johnny challenged what people assumed about normalcy, demonstrating that difference could be a foundation for extraordinary achievement rather than an obstacle to it.
His legacy as a performer and as a human being endures as a quiet, powerful argument for seeing people whole. Number 3. Martin Lorello, the Owl Man. Martin Lorello was born in Germany and eventually made his way to the United States, where he became one of the most startling performers of his era. He had trained for years to dislocate his vertebrae in a way that allowed him to rotate his head a full 180 degrees, looking directly behind him without turning his body. No illusion, no mechanism, just years of deliberate physical conditioning applied to an unusual natural gift. Crowds in variety shows and circuses watched in stunned silence, unable to fully process what they were seeing. He was a living demonstration that the body, pushed carefully and patiently, can arrive at places the mind insists are impossible. Number 4. Alice Elizabeth Doherty, the Minnesota Woolly Baby. Alice was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1887 with an extremely rare condition called hypertrichosis lanuginosa, which caused her entire body to be covered in soft, fine hair called lanugo. Her parents, facing real financial pressure, made the difficult decision to present her condition in curiosity shows, where she became a popular attraction under names that reflected the sensibilities of the time. Despite the unusual circumstances of her public life, Alice was surrounded by family love and managed to live with dignity. Her story is a reminder that difference, even when it draws a crowd, does not have to diminish a person, and that what sets someone apart can become the very thing that sustains them. Number 5. Myrtle Corbin, the four-legged girl from Texas. Myrtle was born in 1868 with a condition called diphagus, a rare developmental anomaly that gave her an extra pair of legs, the result of a parasitic twin that had not fully developed. She began performing in the sideshow circuit at just 13 years old, and audiences across the country were captivated by her. Though she was born in Tennessee, Texas became her home, and the backdrop for most of her life and career. She performed in circuses and curiosity exhibitions and lived to the age of 59, a remarkable lifespan for someone of her era and circumstances. Myrtle's life makes a quiet but insistent case that an extraordinary physical form and a full, meaningful life are not in contradiction. Number 6. Pascual Piñón, the two-headed Mexican. Pascual Piñón was a Mexican railroad worker before a promoter with an eye for spectacle discovered him. He had a large cyst or tumor on his head, and the promoter saw an opportunity, crafting a facial prosthesis designed to resemble a second face, complete with painted eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It was theater, constructed for shock value and maximum crowds.
Pasquale, aware that he was being used, nonetheless chose to participate because it offered a way to support his family. He toured extensively across North America, drawing long lines of curious onlookers. His story sits at an uncomfortable intersection of agency and exploitation. A man who found a measure of economic survival within a system that was also taking advantage of him. Number 7. Pauline Musters, the world's smallest woman. Pauline was born in the Netherlands in 1876 and stood just 58 centimeters tall, making her one of the smallest people ever recorded. She traveled the world performing in variety shows, and wherever she went, she won people over not just with her appearance, but with her charm and warmth. She was a genuinely beloved figure. Curious crowds became genuine admirers. Tragically, her life was brief. Pauline died in 1895 at just 19 years old, taken by pneumonia and meningitis. The shortness of her life makes the brightness of it all the more striking. Number 8. Prince Randian, the human serpent. Prince Randian was born in British Guiana in 1871, with no arms and no legs. Rather than allow that reality to define the boundaries of his life, he spent years mastering his body with extraordinary precision. He could roll a cigarette, light it, and smoke it using only his mouth. He moved across surfaces with fluid, muscular grace that left audiences simultaneously breathless and uncertain what they were witnessing. He joined the Barnum and Bailey Circus and became one of its most talked-about performers during the late 1800s and early 1900s. He was not merely a curiosity. He was a craftsman who had turned an immense physical challenge into a demonstration of what focused human will can accomplish. Number 9. Chang and Eng Bunker, the original Siamese twins.
Born in Thailand in 1811, Chang and Eng were joined at the chest, their livers fused. They were the first widely known conjoined twins, and the condition itself took on their name in popular usage. In 1829, they traveled to the United States and became performers, showing audiences how two people sharing a single body could move, work, and coordinate with remarkable fluency. But their story extends well beyond performance. Both men married, settled in North Carolina, and together fathered 21 children, a world record for conjoined twins. They built financial stability, became well known throughout the country, and lived long lives. Their story is not primarily one of spectacle, but of two people navigating an extraordinary circumstance with pragmatism, love, and considerable success. Number 10. Felix Worley, the Elastic Man. Felix Verla was born in Wisconsin in 1858, and from an early age discovered he could stretch his skin remarkable distances and bend his joints backward without discomfort or injury. He performed in museums and at major circuses, including the Ringling Brothers, where audiences watched in wide-eyed disbelief. Experts have since suggested he may have had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a connective tissue condition that produces unusually elastic skin and hypermobile joints. Whatever its origin, his ability was real and documented. Felix transformed a medical anomaly into a celebrated career, And in doing so, he joined a long line of performers who showed that the body can be stranger and more spectacular than most of us ever imagine. Number 11. Schlitzie Surtees, the last of the pinheads. Schlitzie was born in 1901 with a condition called microcephaly, which resulted in a notably small skull and significant intellectual challenges. None of that stopped him from becoming a genuinely beloved performer. He could sing, he could dance, he told jokes, and he had a quality of warmth and infectious joy that drew people to him instinctively. His laughter was the kind that spread through a room. He appeared as himself in the 1932 film Freaks, and in doing so, he left behind something more lasting than a circus act, a portrait of a person who found real happiness in performance and human connection. Schlitzie reminds us that a life lived joyfully and generously carries its own kind of dignity. Number 12. General Tom Thumb, the Little Big Talent. His given name was Charles Stratton, and he was born in 1838, standing just 63 centimeters tall. P.T. Barnum discovered him at the age of 4 and recognized something rare, not just an unusual appearance, but a genuine performer. Tom Thumb became the centerpiece of Barnum's American Museum in New York City, where he sang, danced, acted, and did impressions of historical figures with professional polish. He toured Europe to enormous acclaim and had a private audience with Queen Victoria. His image appeared on trading cards and household objects. He was a celebrity in the fullest modern sense, and he earned it. His story is a clean refutation of the idea that physical stature has anything to do with the size of what a person can achieve. Number 13. Edward Mordrake, the man with two faces. The story goes that Edward Mordrake was born into a wealthy English family in the 19th century, with a second face on the back of his head, one that reportedly whispered disturbing things to him at night. Unable to find medical or spiritual relief, he reportedly descended into madness and died by suicide while still young. It is a haunting tale, and it has traveled through generations of storytelling with remarkable persistence. However, Edward Mordrake is considered an urban legend. No verified historical record of him exists. He is, most likely, a piece of collective folklore, a story that says more about human fears of the body and the mind than it does about any real individual. He endures as a kind of myth, which, in its own way, is just as revealing. Number 14. Cuckoo, the Bird Girl. Born in Georgia in 1880, Minnie Woolsey, known to audiences as Cuckoo, had a condition called Virchow-Seckel syndrome, sometimes called bird-headed dwarfism, which gave her a small head, a beak-like nose, and a recessed jaw. She was an exceptionally energetic and charming performer who wore feathered costumes, moved in ways that mimicked a bird's motions, and filled every room she entered with her particular brand of exuberance. She performed in freak shows and circuses for years and had a notable role in the 1932 film Freaks, directed by Todd Browning. Cuckoo was not defined by her condition. She was defined by what she chose to do with her stage, and she used it with spirit and flair. Number 15. Frank Lentini, the three-legged man. Frank was born in Sicily in 1889 with a third leg, the result of a congenital defect involving a partially absorbed parasitic twin. His family emigrated to Connecticut when he was 8, and he quickly found his place in the circus world, where he became far more than a visual curiosity. He was a natural comedian and storyteller, used his third leg to jump rope and kick soccer balls with genuine skill, and brought real warmth and humor to his performances. He even joked that he required 15% more food to keep the extra limb fed. Frank's act was a lesson in how to face the world with grace, finding in what made him different not a source of shame, but a source of connection and laughter. Number 16. Ella Harper, the Camel Girl. Born in 1870, Ella had a condition called genu recurvatum, which caused her knees to bend in the reverse direction of most people's, allowing her to move more naturally on all fours than upright. She began her circus career at 14 and drew enormous crowds in the 1880s, her image appearing on posters and promotional materials across the country. Then, in 1886, she walked away from it all. She wanted an education and a quieter life, and she pursued both. Records show she eventually married and settled into private life. What little we know of her after the circus suggests a woman who understood clearly what she wanted and made it happen, which may be the most remarkable thing about her. Number 17. Annie Jones, the Bearded Lady. Annie was born in Virginia in 1865 and began showing signs of hypertrichosis, a condition causing unusual hair growth, from a very young age. By the time she was 5, a beard was already visible. P.T. Barnum discovered her and featured her as the Bearded Lady at his American Museum, where she became one of the most recognizable faces in American entertainment. Annie was a true icon, a woman whose appearance defied the era's rigid ideas about femininity and beauty, and who wore that defiance with confidence. Her story is about the many forms beauty and presence can take, and about the power of simply refusing to disappear. Number 18. Fannie Mills, the Ohio Bigfoot Girl. Fannie was born in Ohio in the 1860s with Milroy disease, a form of lymphedema that caused her legs and feet to swell dramatically. Her feet measured approximately 50 centimeters long and 20 centimeters wide.
She performed in circuses and dime museums, drawing consistent crowds, and built a career that gave her genuine financial independence. She was a self-sufficient woman who used what life had given her to support herself and her family. Fannie passed away in 1929, and while the precise cause of her death remains unrecorded, her lymphedema almost certainly presented serious health complications throughout her life. What she built, in spite of those complications, speaks for itself. Number 19. George and Willie Muse, the brothers who fought their way home. Born in Virginia near the end of the 19th century, George and Willie Muse were brothers. One of them, Willie, was also albino, giving both of them a striking appearance that made them a target for the worst impulses of the sideshow industry.
In 1899, the brothers were taken from their mother, Harriet Muse, and forced into a traveling show where they were given degrading stage names and falsely billed as exotic cannibals. They had no choice in any of it. Over the years, despite everything, they developed real musical talent, and eventually, their mother found them. Harriet Muse fought a legal battle for her son's freedom and for compensation, and she won. Their story is one of exploitation and survival, but more than anything, it is a story about a mother who never stopped looking. Number 20. Lavinia Warren Charmian, the trapeze artist. Born in 1858, Charmian became one of the most daring performers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. A trapeze artist of genuine skill and strength, she was known for an act that combined acrobatics with a kind of striptease, undressing while performing high above the stage floor. It was a sensation. She performed in renowned theaters and circuses and became a genuine icon, celebrated both for her physical bravery and for the way she pushed against the rigid expectations placed on women of her era. She showed audiences, and the industry, that women could be powerful, daring, and fully in command of their own performances. Number 21. Stefan Bobrowski, Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Born in Poland in 1890, Stefan had hypertrichosis that covered his face and body in thick hair, lending him the appearance of a lion. At 4 years old, he was sold to a circus owner who recognized the commercial potential in his appearance. He went on to become one of the most popular attractions in the curiosity show world, not only because of how he looked, but because of who he was. He spoke several languages, was known for his intelligence and wit, mingled comfortably with high society, performed acrobatic routines, and told his own story with eloquence. He was a main attraction at Barnum and Bailey and toured both Europe and America. Lionel was not a spectacle. He was a performer of real accomplishment and considerable charm. Number 22. Grady Stiles Jr., the Lobster Boy. Born in 1937, Grady had ectrodactyly, a condition that gave his hands and feet a claw-like appearance. He followed his father into the circus, where he performed with skill and became a well-known figure. Behind that career, however, was a private life marked by violence and cruelty. In 1978, Grady shot and killed his daughter's fiancé the night before their wedding. Convicted of third-degree murder, he received probation rather than prison time, in part because of his physical condition. The abuse continued for years. In 1992, Grady was murdered by a hired killer contracted by his wife and stepson, who later testified that they had been driven to it by years of abuse. His story is not an easy one, and it does not resolve neatly. It is simply the truth of a very troubled life. Number 23. Isaac Sprague, the Living Skeleton. Isaac was born in Massachusetts in 1841 and began losing weight dramatically at the age of 12, for reasons no physician of the time could identify. He could not gain weight regardless of how much he ate, and his frame became almost skeletal in appearance. In 1865, he joined Barnum's Circus, where he became a headliner. During performances, he shared his story openly, describing the day-to-day reality of living in a body that confounded everyone who examined it. His condition has since been associated by some researchers with extreme muscular atrophy or a severe metabolic disorder, though no diagnosis was ever confirmed. Isaac was both a medical mystery and a consummate performer, a man who turned uncertainty into a career. Number 24. Daisy and Violet Hilton, conjoined twins and a fight for freedom. Born in England in 1908, Daisy and Violet were joined at the hip and buttocks, sharing circulatory systems while maintaining separate organs. From childhood, they were exploited, first by their adoptive mother Mary Hilton, who displayed them for profit, then by Mary's daughter and son-in-law after Mary's death. Through all of it, Daisy and Violet built real skills. They learned to sing, to dance, and to play instruments, eventually earning prominent spots on vaudeville stages. In 1931, they took legal action against their guardians for abuse and exploitation, and they won. From that point forward, they controlled their own careers and finances, appearing in films and continuing to perform on their own terms. Their fight is a landmark story about refusing to be owned, about finding the courage to demand what is yours. Number 25. James Morris, competing for the title of Most Elastic. James Morris was a contortionist who traveled with the Ringling Brothers Circus and pushed human flexibility to its apparent limits, competing, at least in the public imagination, with Felix Verla for the title of the most elastic man alive. He could bend his limbs in directions that seemed to defy skeletal reality, creating the uncanny impression that bone had simply ceased to be a factor. Like Verla, Morris is thought to have had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the connective tissue condition that produces extraordinary skin elasticity and joint mobility. He was a legend within the circus world, a performer who reminded audiences that the body they live in is stranger and more capable than most of them will ever fully appreciate. Number 26. Grace McDaniels, the mule-faced woman. Grace was born with Sturge-Weber syndrome, which caused prominent birthmarks and a noticeably thickened facial structure. She faced cruelty from the public, who labeled her in terms she found degrading. Rather than accept the worst of those labels, Grace pushed back, persuading her managers to use the name she could at least tolerate and covering her ears during introductions she could not. She was shy and gentle in person, by all accounts a kind woman who found her footing in sideshow work and eventually became more comfortable in her own skin. She became a mother, though her son Elmer caused her considerable pain through his struggles and the choices he made with her money. Grace passed away in 1958. Her son followed not long after, his death tied to his long battle with alcohol. Her story is about endurance, about finding a way through a world that was not always kind and making something livable out of it anyway.